So I'm going to try to make a hammer looking pretty similar to this one, except for a steel head and a plastic face on one side. Um, I'm not sure exactly what kind of plastic this is. Um, this is a piece of, I believe, rosewood. I just have it laying around, and it's a good size for this handle. So that's what I'll be making the handle out of. And then this is a PTO shaft I found somewhere. So pretty good tough steel, and it's about the right diameter, so I think I'll make this the head of it. So yeah, let's get started. So I just throw the PTO shaft in the chuck, and I'm now going to indicate it in using a 4-jaw here because it's not, I don't want to take off that much material, and I can get a better grip on it with a 4-jaw. So here I'm just facing off the front. And I'm center drilling it so I can put a live center in there because it's sticking out about 4 times its diameter, which is too far to take any real cuts. Yeah, so I'm just touching off and then turning down the shaft so I can clean up all the rust on the outside of it. I'm power feeding so I can get a consistent chip load, and it usually ends up going faster. I'm just checking to see how much it cleaned up there. Here you can see that I didn't clean up completely, so I'm just going to take one more pass to get all that off. Okay, so now I'm drilling out this end so I can tap it to thread in the plastic end. This material is pretty hard. The inside of it's a little softer than the outside, so I can drill it, but it does cause me some issues. Okay, so I tapped it, and now I'm just going to cut this off on my bandsaw. And once again, it's not really hard, but you know, just that's a pretty nice bandsaw blade, so it cut through it without any problem. But I was using flood cooling. So I wrap it in some copper so the chuck jaws don't mar it up, and then I indicate it in again. Okay, so I'm just gonna face this off, get rid of that saw marks. Okay, so here I'm putting in this high-speed steel tool bit that has a radius ground. So it looks like about an 1/8 inch radius. So I just I'm touching off with this so that the front edge of that tool is touching the front of the thing, and then going in until I see the full radius. I turn down the RPM there because those form tools tend to chatter, and then just polishing it up with some Scotch-Brite and a little file. You have to be really careful when you're using files on a lathe because if you hit the end on the chuck, they can launch back into your hand. So yeah, leave a handle on the files, and don't get them near the chuck as much as possible. And then just polishing it up with some sandpaper. And now I'm chucking up the plastic. Just checking to see if my tool can go back all the way to the as much as I need to take off. This plastic is a pain because it doesn't want to break the chips, so try to do a higher feed rate and heavier depth of cut. Try to get the chips to fall off. As you can see, I'm starting to get better at that. Checking the diameter and then taking whatever's left. Last pass. So here I'm just cleaning up the face of that. And now I'm coming in there and doing a thread relief with my parting tool. Now it's I think it's 3/8 18 die, and I'm just using my tailstock to keep it square. So I kind of put it on there by hand because the plastic wasn't cutting too well. So I messed around with this until I got the threads looking pretty good. And they were a little tight, but I actually like that. The head won't fall off. So now I extended it a little bit so I can part it off. Just using my scale to go about the right thickness I want. I just kind of eyeballed this. It's just kind of personal preference. As you can see, once again, it's kind of a pain to get those chips to break. I started out with too light of a feed rate. Okay, you can see I'm feeding in faster, and the chips are at least kind of flying off the tool and not wrapping around the work. So I just flipped it around, put it on the threaded it onto the head so I can get the two concentric and polish them up together. Okay, so I have finished this head, except for the slot in the middle, like this one. I have to cut that still. So I have a mark in the middle of this, so I can so when I start milling this, I can easily find the middle. And then I think I'm going to do it 1/2 inch wide slot. And then this handle, I will make that fit into it. I'll probably just hand sand it. Okay, so I don't actually have a mill, so I have a milling attachment for my lathe. So I'm taking off my compound and tool post, cleaning it up, make sure there's no chips underneath it, and then here it is. I just made this out of a piece of angle iron and a little lathes cross slide. And you can see it kind of works, but it's not very rigid. Okay, so here I'm just taking a pointer to find that divot I put. Setting the zeros on my dials. So I'm starting by spotting this, and then I'm going to drill out to almost 1/2 inch so I have a clearance. I don't want to have the end mill do all that work. I was just making sure that it was centered, and it was. So here I'm just doing a pilot drill. I think it's about 1/4 inch. Yeah, so now I'm using a, not sure, it's not quite 1/2 inch drill bit, just to get out a lot of the material. This was when I started really having trouble with this material. It's just a little bit too hard to drill out, but I managed it. As you can see, got it stuck in there a little bit, but okay, so now I have a 1/2 inch end mill in there, and yeah, this is when I started having troubles. You can see I have to take really light cuts, and it was not going that well. But I tried for quite a while at this. Okay, so I'm having some serious trouble with this setup with this 1/2 inch end mill. So I'm going to go down to a 3/8 end mill and do pretty much the same thing and then hand file it out to the correct size. And I was also talking to my dad, and he was saying that a lot of hammerheads have a tapered hole here, so when you flare out the wood with a wedge or something, it will have a more mechanical fit. So if I put it out with a 3/8 end mill and then hand file it, I can put that taper into it. So yeah, it did work a lot better with the 3/8 end mill. You can see I'm starting to take out more. It still wasn't a great setup. This milling attachment really wasn't rigid enough to be doing milling with this size end mills. I guess I could have gone to an even smaller end mill and then kind of taken a few passes to get it out to 1/2 inch, but I was getting pretty annoyed at this point, so I just filed it. If you can see, I have indicators on both axes, so I can easily see where I am, and I don't have to. I'm not as likely to make a mistake reading the dial. So that's the wrong wrench. I finished cutting this out, and this is just rough. It isn't the final depthing or anything. You see, sorry, there we go. I cut these out. It's pretty rough because this setup is, yeah, not adequate for any real milling. But I did remove a lot of material this way, and some hand filing, and this should be pretty good. So, yeah. Finished filing this out, so it's tapered slightly. This side's a little bigger than this side. Not sure if you can see that. But now I'm going to make the handle. So I'm modeling it off this. And so I think I'm going to put this on the wood lathe and turn down so that this outside is rounded, but I still have some flats here. So then I can hand sand it, maybe a little bit on the belt sander, to get the rounded shape, the kind of oval rounded shape. And then to fit it into the head, I will just hand sand it until it fits pretty well into the smaller end, and then I will put in some sort of wedge, and then we'll be done. So yeah, let's go in and put this on the wood lathe.